The letter from my great-uncle's attorney arrived on a Tuesday morning, completely unremarkable except for the embossed law firm letterhead that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight streaming through my kitchen window. I'd only met Uncle Bernard twice in my life. Once at a family reunion when I was 7, and again at my father's funeral when I was 19. He was a family eccentric, the one who disappeared into the mountains of North Carolina decades ago and rarely spoke to anyone. Now, apparently, he'd left me everything. Ms. Harper, I understand this comes as a surprise, Attorney Gerald Whitmore said during our first phone call that afternoon. His voice carried the smooth, measured tone of someone who delivered shocking news many times before. Your great-uncle's estate consists primarily of land, approximately 1,200 acres in the Blue Ridge foothills. There's also the original farmhouse, though I should warn you it needs considerable work. I sat down heavily on my couch, my mind reeling. 1,200 acres? I don't even know what to do with that much land. Well, there is one complication, Whitmore continued, and I could hear papers rustling on his end. About 15 years ago, a residential development called Whispering Pines was built on what the developers believed was adjacent county land. However, recent surveys conducted for your uncle's estate have revealed that the entire development, all 47 homes, was actually built on your great-uncle's property. My mouth went dry. I'm sorry, what? The development is on your land, Ms. Harper. The county records were incorrect, and the title company failed to catch the discrepancy. Your great-uncle discovered this about 3 years ago, but was pursuing legal action when he passed. The entire Whispering Pines HOA is, legally speaking, trespassing on your property. 3 weeks later, I stood at the edge of what I now knew was my property, staring down at the neat rows of cookie-cutter houses that made up Whispering Pines. They were nice homes, 2-story colonials with manicured lawns, 3-car garages, and those decorative lampposts that seem mandatory in every modern subdivision. In the center, I could see a clubhouse with a pool, tennis courts, and a playground, all of it sitting on land that belonged to me. This is insane, I muttered to myself. You must be Cassandra Harper. I turned to find a woman in her 50s marching up the dirt road toward me. She wore white capri pants, a pink polo shirt, and an expression that could have curdled milk. Her blonde hair was pulled back, so tightly I wondered if it gave her headaches. I'm Patricia Moreland, president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association, she announced, stopping a few feet away with her hands on her hips. We need to talk about this ridiculous claim you're making. It's not a claim, I replied calmly. It's a fact. The land surveys don't lie. This entire development is on my property. Patricia's face flushed red. That's absurd. We've been here for 15 years. We have legal rights. Actually, you don't. I pulled out the surveyor's report from my bag. This has been verified by 3 independent surveyors and confirmed by the county. The original property records had the boundary lines wrong. Your developer built on private land without permission. This is our home. Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. You can't just kick us out. We'll sue you into oblivion. I met her gaze steadily. Feel free, but I suggest you sue your developer and title company instead. They're the ones who messed up. I'm simply claiming what's legally mine. Over the next week, I learned just how nasty an HOA could be when threatened. Patricia launched what I could only describe as a smear campaign. She sent letters to every resident claiming I was a greedy outsider trying to steal their homes. She organized a neighborhood meeting where, according to the one friendly resident who texted me, she compared me to various historical villains. Then came the attempts at intimidation. I'd moved into Uncle Bernard's farmhouse, a charming but dilapidated structure about a quarter mile from the development. One morning, I woke to find my driveway blocked by 3 pickup trucks. Several men stood around them, arms crossed, trying to look menacing. I walked out onto the porch with my coffee, deliberately casual. Can I help you, gentlemen? You need to drop this land nonsense, one of them called out. He was in his 40s, balding, with a goatee that probably looked better in his imagination. We're not going anywhere. I see. And blocking my driveway is supposed to convince me. How exactly? This is a warning, Goatee Guy said. Things could get difficult for you out here. Accidents happen on properties is big. I pulled out my phone and very visibly started recording. I want to make sure I have this on camera. You're threatening me with violence if I don't surrender my legal property rights. Is that correct? The men exchanged uncomfortable glances. Also, just so you know, the county sheriff is my attorney's brother-in-law, and he's very interested in this case. This was technically true. Whitmore had mentioned it casually. The trucks were gone within 5 minutes. But Patricia wasn't done. She tried a different approach. Negotiation, or what she considered negotiation. She appeared at my door 3 days later, this time with a forced smile and a covered dish. "I thought we got off on the wrong foot," she said sweetly. "I brought you a casserole." I took the dish warily. "Thank you. The thing is, Cassandra, may I call you Cassandra? We're reasonable people. We understand you have legal ownership, technically, but surely we can work something out. The HOA is prepared to offer you $50,000 to quitclaim the land to us." I almost laughed. $50,000? For 1,200 acres of prime real estate with an entire development on it. Well, what do you want then? The sweetness was already evaporating from her voice. "I want what's mine," I said simply, "and I want compensation for 15 years of unauthorized use of my property." Patricia's mask dropped completely. "You're making a huge mistake. We have lawyers. We have resources. We'll tie you up in court for years." "Go ahead," I said. "My attorney is working on contingency because he knows this is an open-end shut case. How much will your HOA spend on legal fees before your members turn on you?" I closed the door on her sputtering outrage. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A man named Robert Chun, one of the Whispering Pines residents, knocked on my door a few days later. Unlike Patricia, he looked genuinely worried rather than angry. "Ms. Harper, I'm a real estate attorney," he said, "not representing the HOA. This is personal. I've reviewed the surveys and the property records. Your claim is ironclad." "I know." "Right. So, I've been talking to some of the other residents, the ones Patricia doesn't control. We want to negotiate a real solution, not the insulting offer she made." I invited him in, and we talked for 2 hours. The settlement took 3 months to finalize. It turned out that Patricia and her inner circle of 4 other board members had known about Uncle Bernard's lawsuit years ago, but had hidden it from the general membership, gambling that he'd die before it concluded. They'd bet wrong. When the other residents learned the truth, there was a special HOA meeting that Patricia did not control. She was removed from the board, and Robert became the new president. The final agreement was actually fair. The HOA purchased the 120 acres that the development occupied for $2.4 million, $20,000 per acre, market rate. They also paid $450,000 in back rent for the 15 years of unauthorized use. The money came from a combination of a special assessment on each household, insurance settlements from the developer's errors and omissions policy, and a lawsuit against the title company that had missed the error. Patricia and her co-conspirators, who'd known about the problem and hidden it, were personally sued by the other HOA members for breach of fiduciary duty. Last I heard, they'd settled out of court for substantial amounts. As for me, I kept the remaining 1,080 acres. I sold off 500 acres to a conservation trust, ensuring it would remain undeveloped forest. With that money in the HOA settlement, I paid off my student loans, quit my soul-crushing corporate job, and renovated Uncle Bernard's farmhouse. I'm writing this from the porch of that farmhouse now, looking out over hundreds of acres of rolling hills and forest. In the distance, I can just barely see the roof lines of Whispering Pines. We're cordial neighbors now. Robert and I have even become friends. Some of the residents wave when they drive past. Patricia moved away 6 months ago. I heard she's in Florida now, probably terrorizing a new HOA. As for me, I learned something valuable from Uncle Bernard, even though we barely knew each other. Sometimes the most valuable inheritance isn't money or land. It's the backbone to stand up for what's rightfully yours, no matter how many Karens come knocking at your door. The land is mine. I earned it by not backing down, and I'm not going anywhere.